Hey there, and welcome to Soundcheck by Support Act. My name is Luke O'Connor, and I'm the Industry Relations Manager for Support Act. And this afternoon, I am joined by Tracy Margieson from the Arts Wellbeing Collective. Thanks for joining me, Tracy.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. And before we proceed, I'd like to let you know about the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline, of which the Arts Wellbeing Collective are a partner in, which is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week helpline for people working in the music and now the extended art sectors who are looking for support with a mental health or other welfare issue. If you want to call that helpline, you can call them now on 1-800-959-500. And perhaps you want to tell us a little bit more about the helpline, Tracy.
Yeah, sure thing. As Luke said, the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline is a 24/7 phone counselling service available to anyone who works in the arts industry, in any of the creative industries. It's an incredible service, really, to have 24/7 access to professional clinicians. They've all got such great experience. I think there's an average, each person has an average of about 15 years clinical experience, really experienced psychologists and specialists working in the field. I think the really critical thing though with the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline is that the clinicians working on the helpline and staffing that helpline also have an understanding of or experience in or both of the arts sector. So you're not going to have to ring up and then spend, the first 20 minutes explaining your job and justifying all your life choices. You can actually just be like, this is my job, this is my gig, and they're like, okay, cool, let's go. I think that's the really unique thing that I think is really special about Helpline.
Absolutely. It is I guess it's a leading thing, and it's so great that as an industry that we have it. So Tracy, do you want to tell us a little bit about the Arts Wellbeing Collective and your role specifically?
Sure. One of my favourite topics. As Luke said, I have the great privilege of being the head of program of the Arts Wellbeing Collective. So I've been working on it since it was a little kind of star in the sky idea. So it originated at Arts Centre Melbourne, kind of came about in about 2016. So it's young-ish, and really in response to themes and trends that we were seeing at the Arts Centre with our teams, and kind of reaching out to some of our partners and seeing that they were experiencing really similar things and weren't quite sure what to do. And similar to what I mentioned about the helpline, where having that kind of industry knowledge is so vital, and we sort of saw this gap of industry-led mental health programs in the performing arts industry. And around that time was also when a lot of that research came out by Victoria University that was commissioned by Entertainment Assist, and that really put numbers to what we already knew to be true anecdotally, I think, across the industry. So from there we had a pilot in 2017, and then we launched the program in 2018. So we're kind of loosely coming up to sort of our 2-year anniversary, I guess, of the full program. So it's essentially a community of practice of about 300 arts and cultural organisations who work together to create programs and resources and services and initiatives to promote positive mental health and wellbeing in the performing arts.
I know you touched on it already with the Wellbeing Helpline, but why do you think it's so important that the performing arts have services and the materials that are tailored to them specifically? Why is that such an important thing?
Yeah, I think it's critical that really any mental health program is tailored to the people who use it. I think that as soon as you see something that's for you, it just makes such a difference to the way that you can see it being in your life, And I mean, our mental health is as complex and as individual as every single one of us. But I think in the performing arts, similar to music, there's some really unique challenges. So when you do kind of look at a lot of the traditional mental health and wellbeing programs that are kind of on the market, a lot of them just don't apply. You sort of read the advice or you kind of read the suggestions of what to do, and you kind of go, okay, that's great, but I'm on tour. I'd love to get an early night, but that's just not going to happen. I'd love to get this much sleep. I'd love to be able to eat really well. I'd love to be able to exercise, but I'm in a touring context, or I'm working on a long-running show, or I'm working in a really physical show, or I'm self-producing, and it's kind of risk-reward doesn't appropriately skewed, and all these really unique things. But also too, I think some of the really interesting stuff in our industry is it's quite, for such a creative industry, sometimes we can be quite traditional in the way that we work. We've got kind of a lot of things that are really the way we do things. And we can be quite traditional for such a creative and innovative industry. And I think one of the things that come with that are some kind of myths and some traditions and some truisms that aren't necessarily true, or they're not necessarily serving us in a really positive way for our mental health. They're actually having a negative impact on our mental health. So I think one of the things that I really love with Arts Wellbeing Collective is kind of really interrogating those things, really interrogating our ways of working, processes, practices, the things that we've just kind of done that have built up over a couple hundred years that we sort of hold on to, and really going, is that the best way we can do things? And sort of unpacking it from that point of view as well. So I think from that point of view too, my background is in the performing arts, it's not in mental health, and I think that's been a really interesting learning curve as well of going, this is my industry and my community, and then we kind of take all the best bits, we kind of take all the best evidence and the best research and work with beautiful, amazing clinicians to kind of pull together the most relevant stuff. I try and think of my job as like kind of a knowledge transfer job, but also kind of this in-between person that gets to do all the stuff that no one has time for, because we're all putting on shows and doing our work.
I feel exactly the same way, Tracy.
Yeah, so you kind of go, it's all right, I'll sort it all out, I'll read all the research, I'll sit here and kind of digest it all and get all the information and work out all the problems, and then kind of put it together in a way that's really practical and able to kind of be actioned by our beautiful community, so that we can all just be working at our very best and thriving in what is a really challenging and unique environment to be working in.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned in the research before, an industry that is shown to have a high propensity for mental illness. And I think it requires someone like yourself in that role to have the passion to drive that kind of industrial change that is required, in those areas where it's like, the show must go on, must always, is always the mantra. And, it's the name of Ben Steele's documentary about it that was featured on ABC not long ago, which has sparked a lot more conversation once again about this topic. Now, you mentioned yourself that you come from the performing arts. Maybe you want to share a little bit about what your history is in performing arts.
Yeah, sure. So I didn't really start in the performing arts, I guess. I was really into sport in high school. I was very much into sport. As part of that, I was also into a lot of circus, but kind of read that as a sports thing, not a theatre thing for some reason. And then my undergrad was in semiotics, which is a kind of not really, it's interesting.
A completely unrelated field, Pat.
Completely unrelated. And it kind of, there's sort of this like in-joke that you could basically be a professor of semiotics and teach semiotics, or you can be a lexicographer. And I'm pretty sure if I wasn't doing this job, I would be a lexicographer.
Can you just explain to anyone who's come this far what a lexicographer would be?
Sure, anyone who's still listening.
I'm sure there's plenty of people. It's just like, lexicographer sounds like an interesting subject.
Yeah, so it's essentially like people who write dictionaries. Is the really top line of it. So how words mean and what they mean and how we define them and those sorts of things. So I kind of like it because I am kind of noticing how much I do draw on it. Because, being in a storytelling industry, your words are so powerful, so I do kind of, and also the stories we tell ourselves, both within industry and about our mental health, I think is so critical. So I definitely am still drawing on it, but it's probably not the most obvious pathway, I guess, into theatre.
No, not at all.
So then when I finished that degree, I kind of looked at what I wanted to do, and I guess I've sort of always been passionate about theatre, but I grew up in a smallish kind of beach town, and I guess the variety of roles that you can have in this industry is not very well known. Certainly when I was growing up, it was kind of, you were an actor. Actually, there was no real awe. If you were in this industry, you were an actor. I definitely didn't know about producers and stage managers and marketing and like just the massive, roles and industry behind kind of that fun art and see on stage. So I was just really interested in being a part of that. Did a series of short courses in in stage management and directing and producing, just to kind of suss out what I kind of liked the look of. And then kind of, as everybody does with their kind of portfolio career, did a bit of a lot of working kind of festivals and events management, and working in kind of outdoor concerts and things like that. Then ran my own business for a little while, did a lot of freelancing, and I've got kind of a company that does a bit of tour management, some independent producing, a bit of playwriting. Haven't done much recently because AWC can be a bit kind of intense and all-consuming. But yeah, but that's sort of another part. And then I was working in a marketing job in this awesome theatre space, like Gasworth Park, just down the road in South Melbourne, or Melbourne. And it's great. Like, it was a really cool job, really cool team, just like really awesome job. And it wasn't kind of, I'd been there, I guess, like nearly 4 years, and it kind of wasn't like hitting the mark for me. And I went to careers counselling, and had a bit of a chat, sort of going, you know, this job is perfect, like it's awesome, but it just doesn't feel, you know, like the right thing kind of thing. And this careers counsellor said to me, if you went to a show and you were the only person in the audience, how would you feel? And I was like, is that okay? Well, as long as it wasn't a show that I was supposed to have been marketing, I'd be fine.
Yeah.
That sounds like great fun.
You might have a very short career.
Yeah. And she said to me, yeah, she said, from everything I've read about you and everything you told me, all your energy and all your passion is always for the people in the industry. It's for the industry itself. She said, you're not really driven by getting people to see shows. She said, you're totally driven by meaning and purpose, and all that meaning and purpose is directed at improving the industry. And she said, you need a sector-facing role. And it was like, light bulb, that's so right. And then when this job got advertised, I was probably like quite intense at the interview, because I think I was like, this is my job. You don't understand. Like, this is my job. And yeah, so that's a very squiggly line of how I ended up working in this very exciting, unique job.
Yeah, and it is a really important role in the industry, as I can also attest to in my position. Like, I feel like, similar to you, when I came into this role, people was like, oh, man, that's like such a niche position, but also seems perfect for your skill set and personality. I was like, I know. It's just that sometimes these things happen. And so I'm very, very fortunate to be in this role. So in light of coronavirus, obviously everyone's pretty familiar with like how much of an impact that's had on music and the broader arts sector. What did it look like for Arts Wellbeing Collective in those first couple of weeks when coronavirus hit and we were enduring cancellations left, right and centre?
Yeah. It was surreal. I think those first few weeks was completely surreal. Sort of the kind of suddenness with which it happened, and I guess the shock, and everyone kind of going into that kind of crisis mode. It was such a surreal experience. We definitely said a lot of time through this that we're so grateful that Arts Wellbeing Collective was already set up. We were so grateful that we were sort of, you know, like we kind of went, gosh, imagine if we'd like launched in this February and not kind of 2 years ago February. And yeah, I think that was a big overwhelming thing for us. It's going on, at least we've got these beautiful vendors that we can connect with and support and reach out to, and we've got a team dedicated to producing resources and getting videos together, and the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline and being able to connect people to that, and like even just wording up the clinicians. Like I remember on that first weekend of contacting the clinical services manager and just being like, this is hitting us hard. All of the announcements, that's our sector. It was always this thing of going, that's us, that's every single person in this industry is being affected by this. So yes, I think it was very intense, and it's still intense, and it does keep changing over time. I think as the as the restrictions ease, and then Victoria turn, and I think I think like at the start it was sort of, I remember like when we first closed, it was the 4-week closure, and then it was the 8 weeks and the 12 weeks. So as it goes on, obviously everybody's experience of it changes. But I think like it's sort of, for an industry like ours, I think we're lucky at least in that. It's not luck, it's the skill of the people that work in this industry, that people are so adaptable and resilient and capable and creative and innovative. And I think that the other wonderful thing that's been sort of the work of Support Act, the work of Ben Steele's filming, the work of this conversation gathering momentum, is that we are comfortable talking about this stuff. And, you know, we weren't kind of even on the back foot from that point of view. You know, people have said really openly, even like Facebook, of people doing shout outs and going, just checking everyone's okay and how things going. Is anyone in chat? Don't forget there's this service and there's that service. And I think that's really wonderful to see the sector kind of really looking out for each other as well. Yeah, but it's been, every now and then I just kind of go, what is going on?
Yeah.
And almost like step back from it and almost like look as an outsider even, and kind of curiously look at what's happening and go, wow, this is quite a thing to live through. This is quite a unique experience that we're all having that's, yeah, overwhelming, but I think if there's any industry that's going to come through this stronger than ever, like, it's got to be ours. You know, this is the stuff we're good at. You know? Yeah.
So how do you see the Arts Wellbeing Collective changing and adapting and growing once this is all over? Because I think for everyone who's been involved in, you know, trying to support the recovery of the sector, which is still very much, you know, we're at the very baby steps beginning of that. How do you think it's going to change what Arts Wellbeing Collective does, and how does it change the priorities and the kind of objectives of you guys?
Yeah, such a great question. It was something that we were really thinking really deeply about, was around what was needed now, what might be needed in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and so on. And I think there are a couple of really interesting things to note. And something that I think that the main thing that we really were struck by was, once that initial shock had worn off and kind of a few things had come into play. You know, the government had kind of announced JobSeeker and JobKeeper, and Support Act got the additional funding for the crisis relief and our incredible Actors Benevolent Trusts, and you know, a few places sort of stepped into this space, and TNA's crisis cash initiatives are just really, really great support in that way. We sort of checked in with with our network and had some conversations and had this kind of, not really a light bulb moment, it was kind of a slow dimming, I think, you know, slowly turning the light up rather than like a, you know, moment. But this realization that, with the exception of the health crisis of coronavirus, the actual crisis itself, the disruption, had not necessarily created any new problems in the performing arts. It had really just like had this gigantic magnifying glass placed over all the existing problems. You know, so all the things that were a problem before in terms of gig economy, short-term jobs, you know, short-term contracting, low job security, low financial security, government not really understanding what the arts is or why it's important or why it's valuable. Like, all of these things that were already an issue just kind of got really, really magnified through this, and had happened to everyone in the industry. So while that did kind of have an impact on everyone in this industry at some time or another, you know, usually it was in stages and cycles and so on, rather than this whole shutdown,
all at once,
all at once thing. So I think for us, we sort of went, well, that's really interesting in terms of what we'd already scoped for the next 12 months. Actually, none of it's changed. The only thing we really felt was that all of it was kind of needed yesterday. That was probably our overwhelming feeling of like, oh, come on, let's get this out faster.
We should have done that 6 months ago like we planned.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that would have been, had a little army working with us, you know, for the last 12 months. That would have been fun. Just be like, oh, we're fine. But yeah.
I think I can concur with that. Same with Support Act. Like, there's a number of things that have been on our kind of plates, I guess, for some time to start to work on, and it was always going to be a slowly, like, you know, match funding with what we can achieve and what's doable and what's a priority, and what this really laid out for us as an organisation is like, okay, we really should move on this stuff because it's really important. for people to be looking after their mental health now in this kind of crisis phase, and also start to build some healthier structures as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with all that said, I mean, we probably should just get into like Arts Wellbeing Collective. If people want to know more, or they want to enlist you to work with their arts organisation or whatnot, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it is a community of practice, so it's by industry for industry. So like absolutely reach out to our website is artswellbeingcollective.com.au, and on that is an inquiry form if you just want to flick it through and say hello. Always happy to hear from you. Membership is absolutely free. The resources are open access and free. We do a lot of work with our companies. So with a lot of the companies that we work with, there might be something small, there might be a little kind of difficulty that you're seeing impact people's mental health. It might be a larger scale kind of support for reopening strategies through COVID. It could be any number of things, even just sometimes we'll get emails saying, do you know anyone in this bit that could help with this? So we can kind of make those connections as well. We also work with so many people on the resources that we build. So I think Tour Wellbeing is a really good example of that, where we ended up with about 200 different people contributing to that resource, which was incredible. Admittedly, the first version was like a PhD in tourism. It was like 40,000 words. We didn't publish that one. We definitely published the edited practical one. But we always love hearing people's stories, and even just people who want to contribute. And that can be through reviewing stuff, from looking at content, or even just sharing their experiences. Everyone's observations are useful. We go by this sort of idea of, every story has part of that whole in it. It's a concept that one of my colleagues was reading in a book by incredible Indigenous author, it's called Sound Talk, for those who are interested in reading it. And I'm probably going to summarize it terribly, but this idea that the truth of the whole is encapsulated in every individual story. And I think we really love that idea, because you'll have a practitioner tell you their experience, and even though it's their experience that's very specific to who they are and their unique, diverse background and view and lens, there's truth in that. That's actually encapsulating everything that you want to do, that we want to do better to make this industry the best it can possibly be. And so even if you just want to reach out and be like, hey, here's my experience of something that might help, we can kind of feed that into the range of resources that we develop and the programs that we design, because also that person is going to be the one using them, so may as well be informed by your stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I can echo that. So it's groundbreaking stuff in Australia, what Arts Wellbeing Collective is doing, and there are some fantastic resources. If you're listening in and you're looking for some resources around touring, the Tour Well document is great. Go and check out the Arts Wellbeing Collective's websites. There's fantastic information on there, how you can provide healthier workplaces for people who are working in the arts. Thanks so much for joining me today, Tracy.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Let's
do it again sometime. Before you leave, make sure if you are struggling with your mental health and wellbeing to contact the Support Act Wellbeing Helpline on 1-800-959-500. The service is open to anyone who works in the music and broader arts sectors. Make sure you get onto that now. Also, if you work in the music industry, if you visit our website, supportact.org.au, and go to the Get Help tab, we are currently running the COVID-19 Crisis Relief Fund. If you work in the music industry professionally and are in financial strife right now, make sure you go and do that. Once again, thanks, Tracy, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.